Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know where are you watching from and what time is it there. Please hype me on YouTube. Thanks.
Suffering doesn't arise from what happens to you. It comes from the way you resist it. If you truly want to break free from the endless cycle of emotional pain, the first thing you must understand is a hard, often overlooked truth. Suffering isn't caused by events themselves, but by your resistance to what already is. Most people live their entire lives without realizing this. They stay trapped in a constant state of inner struggle, endlessly replaying the same pain again and again, unaware that they are the ones keeping their suffering alive. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychological thinkers, captured this perfectly in one of his most striking lines. "What you resist persists." And this isn't just a pleasant-sounding quote. It's a profound psychological and spiritual truth, powerful enough to reshape your whole life. Think about it carefully. Whenever something painful happens, when you lose a job, a relationship ends, someone betrays you, or you face a major setback, your emotions react naturally. You might feel sadness, anger, disappointment, fear, or confusion. All of these are valid human emotions. But here's the catch. The suffering you experience doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from your inner battle with reality. It comes from that voice inside your head saying, "This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I can't live with this." That inner resistance, the refusal to accept what is what turns pain into prolonged torment. That's the real source of suffering. You see, the human mind is wired for control. We want life to move our way. We want to avoid discomfort, to cling to stability and predictability. But life doesn't obey our personal rules. It moves with its own mysterious rhythm. So what happens when life throws us off course? When things collapse or plans fail, our instinct is to fight back, to deny, to push against reality. We say, "This shouldn't have happened to me." And in that exact moment of rebellion against what's real, suffering begins. Take a breakup, for example. The natural pain of losing someone might last days, weeks, maybe a few months, but the suffering that lingers for years, that deep, gnawing ache born of resistance, of clinging to the past, of replaying memories on endless loop, believing it should have ended differently, isn't caused by the loss itself. It's caused by the refusal to release what already is. The same pattern applies to betrayal, failure, rejection, or any loss. It's not the event that breaks you. It's the constant resistance to accepting what's done. So how do we escape this destructive cycle? The answer lies in a spiritual truth that, when fully lived, can change everything. Radical acceptance. Now, let's be clear. Acceptance isn't resignation. It doesn't mean you like what happened, approve of it, or deny that it hurt. Acceptance simply means you stop fighting with reality. You stop wasting your energy in an unwinnable war. You stop resisting what already is. Instead, you redirect that same energy toward the only thing you can truly control, your response. And when you finally accept what's happened, truly accept it, something remarkable begins to unfold. The heaviness starts to lift. Not because the pain disappears, but because you've stopped feeding it. You're no longer fueling your suffering through resistance. Picture someone who's just been fired. If they cling to anger, blame, and the belief that it was unjust, they can stay trapped for years, resenting the company, feeling like a victim, carrying that wound into every future job. But if instead they choose acceptance and ask, "What can I do with this?" they reclaim their power. They stop reacting and start living intentionally. The pain becomes a teacher, a spark for growth. That's the essence. It all comes down to perception. Jung often spoke about the importance of integrating every part of our experience, even the ones that hurt. Because wholeness only comes when we stop fighting what life gives us. Painful and uncomfortable experiences are part of being alive. Because pain, when accepted instead of resisted, turns into wisdom. One of the biggest mistakes we all make at some point is believing that our suffering is special, that no one else could ever understand what we're going through, that our pain is somehow more unbearable than what others have faced. But the truth is, pain is a universal thread in the human experience. Everyone suffers. What separates those who evolve from those who stay trapped isn't how much pain they endure, it's how they relate to it. Those who resist pain suffer. Those who accept pain grow. If you genuinely want to heal, if you truly want to be free, the first step is to stop fighting life itself. Accept what happened. Accept what you can't change. Accept what already is. Then turn your focus entirely toward what you can change. And here's the secret no one mentions about liberation from suffering. The most startling realization is that most of your suffering never came from the event itself. It came from how tightly you held on to the pain. A relationship ended, and you were heartbroken for years. But it wasn't only the breakup, it was your refusal to release it. Someone betrayed you and you couldn't move forward. But it wasn't just the betrayal. It was your attachment to resentment. You lost an opportunity and felt stuck in life. But it wasn't only the missed chance. It was your obsession with what could have been. When you finally let go of resistance, when you stop fighting reality, suffering starts to dissolve. That doesn't mean pain disappears overnight, but it loses its power over you. With time, the pain becomes a teacher instead of a lifelong weight. Now comes the deeper truth, the one most people never even think about. How your unconscious mind keeps you trapped in suffering. Because once you grasp that suffering grows from resistance, the next question naturally arises. If I know this, why do I keep repeating the same emotional patterns again and again? And here is where everything begins to shift. Because once you discover the hidden reason behind that question, you'll realize something astonishing. You have far more control over your life than you've ever believed. So keep listening, because in the next section, we'll explore something truly life-changing. How your mind has been unconsciously trained to hold on to suffering. And more importantly, what you can start doing today to break that pattern forever. Let's start with a difficult truth. Your unconscious mind is programmed to make you suffer repeatedly. If you've ever felt like pain keeps showing up in your life for no reason, as if suffering is some cruel twist of fate that follows you around, then it's time to wake up to a truth very few people dare to say. The reality is, you are the one replaying your pain again and again without realizing it. Not because you want to suffer, but because your unconscious programming keeps pulling you into the same emotional loops. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung put it in one of his most piercing statements: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What Jung meant was that the pain you keep encountering isn't random. It's not that the universe is punishing you, or that life is cruel for no reason. You're not cursed, unlucky, or doomed. It's because, deep within your subconscious, there are emotional and mental patterns you keep replaying automatically. You're reliving them not by choice, but because they're familiar. They've been wired into your system. The unconscious mind functions like hidden software installed long before you were aware of it. And if you grew up in an environment where love came with pain, where abandonment felt normal, or where safety was never guaranteed, those experiences became your emotional blueprint. They weren't consciously chosen. They were absorbed, imprinted, and now they silently run the show. One ever tells you this. Your unconscious doesn't care about your happiness. It only cares about what feels familiar. Familiarity is powerful. That's why, even when your conscious mind wants to escape suffering, a deeper part of you keeps attracting the same people, the same situations, and the same painful endings. It's not coincidence, it's a pattern, the invisible trap of the unconscious. Have you noticed how you keep finding yourself in relationships that hurt you? Or how moments of joy or success somehow collapse, as if you unintentionally sabotage them? Do you feel like you keep facing the same problems, even after promising yourself that this time things will be different? That's not bad luck. That's your subconscious mind repeating what it knows best. That's emotional self-sabotage in motion. But why would anyone choose what destroys them? The answer lies in what you learned as a child. If love once came with pain or abandonment, then as an adult you'll unconsciously seek out relationships that recreate that same emotional pattern. Not because you want to suffer, but because that's what your nervous system recognizes. It feels familiar. And in the strange logic of the mind, familiar equals safe, even when it hurts. If you faced rejection, humiliation, or neglect when you were young, then today you might avoid opportunities, relationships, or dreams. Because a part of you still fears that same pain will return, you might stay where it feels safe, even if that means staying trapped in suffering. And here's the part that hurts the most. Until you become aware of these patterns, you'll keep repeating them for the rest of your life, and you'll call it destiny. You'll say things like, "Why do I always attract the same kind of person? Why doesn't my life ever change? Why does everything always go wrong for me?" But the truth is, it's not life, it's not fate, it's not the universe against you. It's you unconsciously reenacting the script written inside you long ago. So how do you break this hidden cycle of suffering? Here's the key. You cannot change what you cannot see. If you truly want to end emotional pain, the first step is recognizing the pattern you've been unknowingly living. You must bring it to light. Start by asking yourself a few brutally honest questions. What has been the dominant emotion in my life? Rejection, abandonment, betrayal, frustration, fear. What kinds of relationships or situations do I keep attracting? What story do I tell myself about who I am and what the world is? When you answer these questions truthfully, something remarkable happens. You realize that the suffering you've been carrying hasn't been coming from outside. It's been coming from within. You've been projecting it onto the world again and again without even knowing it, and that's the moment everything begins to shift. Breaking the cycle of emotional pain doesn't mean you'll never feel sadness, anger, or frustration again. Those emotions are part of being human. What it does mean is that you'll no longer be imprisoned by hidden patterns that rule your life without your awareness. Because once you become conscious of your unconscious programming, you stop being its servant. You can't avoid all pain, but you can stop recycling it. You can stop feeding it. You can stop choosing it without knowing why. From that point on, you start choosing consciously instead of reacting automatically. And in the next section, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how the ego plays a central role in keeping you stuck in suffering, and more importantly, what you can do to dismantle its power before it ruins your peace. Because once you understand how the ego operates in all this, that's when you finally begin to reclaim your strength. Let's talk about the ego. The ego feeds on your suffering. It thrives on your pain. And if you're truly ready to break free from the emotional patterns that keep wounding you, there's something essential you must understand. The ego is your greatest obstacle on the path to healing. It's that inner voice that convinces you that you have every right to. You feel hurt, convinced that the world is unfair, that others need to change before you can be happy. The ego feeds you stories like, "I'm always the victim," or "nothing ever works out for me." But here's the brutal truth. The ego doesn't want you to heal. Because if you did, if you truly let go of your suffering, the ego would lose its identity. It would have nothing left to feed on. The ego thrives on conflict, on blame, on judgment, on the illusion of separation. It creates drama just to keep itself alive. It tells you that your pain proves you're right and the world is wrong, that you're justified in holding resentment, that you must cling to your wounds. But once you start to see the ego for what it really is, a defense mechanism, a mask, a survival strategy, you begin to disarm it. You start stepping into a deeper version of yourself, one that doesn't need pain to feel real, one that doesn't need to repeat the past to feel safe. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung once said, "The mind that creates the problem is not the same mind that can solve it." That truth reveals the core of our suffering. The part of you that caused your emotional pain is not the one capable of healing it, and that part is the ego. The ego isn't just a voice in your head. It's the filter through which you see everything. And tragically, it's the same ego that created your pain in the first place. When you try to heal from within the ego's framework, you only reinforce the suffering you're trying to escape. So how does the ego sabotage emotional healing? It's cunning. It doesn't openly tell you, "I want you to suffer." Instead, it whispers convincing reasons to keep holding on to your pain. It reminds you again and again of what was done to you, how you were betrayed, how life was unfair, how people abandoned you. It loops those memories like an endless reel, making you believe that replaying them gives you strength. But in truth, it only keeps you trapped. trapped in the same loop of pain, the same emotional prison the ego built long ago. One of the ego's most dangerous tricks is making you identify with your suffering. It convinces you that your pain defines who you are. Without realizing it, you start to shape your identity through the lens of your past wounds. You say things like, "I'm always betrayed, people always leave me, this always happens to me." And each time you say it, each time you think it, you carve that belief deeper into your psyche. You become unconsciously loyal to your pain. The ego also convinces you that the problem lies outside yourself. It tells you your pain is someone else's fault, that life owes you something, that your circumstances must change before you can feel whole again. And this is the perfect trap, because if the solution is always external, you never have to take responsibility for your healing. You stay in a state of waiting for an apology, for justice, for someone to save you. And as long as you're waiting, you're not growing, you're not evolving, you're stuck. The ego feeds on conflict, comparison, and old wounds that never heal, because it keeps scratching them open just to feel alive. It thrives when you dwell on what went wrong. It keeps you spinning in self-pity, resentment, and blame. It convinces you that you're powerless. And this is where the trap of victimhood begins. One of the most subtle and dangerous ways the ego keeps you weak is by clinging to the identity of the victim. When you fall into victimhood, you start to believe that everything bad that happens to you is caused by others, by people, by luck, by fate. And while it might feel like self-protection, blaming the outside world only strips you of your power. Because when you believe you have no control, you'll never take the steps necessary to change it. And that's exactly what the ego wants, to keep you small, defenseless, and trapped in suffering. But here comes the harshest truth of all. No one is coming to save you. No matter how much you cry, no matter how many times you blame others, no matter how loudly you complain, no one will rescue you. The only person who can break this cycle is you. So how do you dismantle the ego and reclaim control over your life? The first, most important step is realizing that you are not your ego. You are not your suffering. You are not your past. You are not that inner voice insisting you'll always be a victim. The ego wants you to cling to your pain because that keeps it alive. But the moment you stop feeding it, the ego begins to lose power. It starts to weaken, and in that moment, something extraordinary happens. You start to awaken. There are 3 powerful ways to loosen the ego's grip. First, observe the voice in your head. When the ego reminds you of your wounds, when it tells you life is unfair, pause. Don't react. Simply watch it like an observer. Recognize that this voice is not you. It's merely a mental program, a pattern, a recording that loops endlessly. The more you watch without identifying with it, the less power it has. Second, stop feeding the story of suffering. Every time you replay how you were wronged, every time you talk about your pain to anyone who will listen, you reinforce the wound. You give it more power. Ask yourself, does this story strengthen me or weaken me? If it weakens you, let it go. Stop rehearsing your pain. Third, do the opposite of what the ego wants. The ego craves reaction, anger, grudges, and resentment. But when you respond with calm, detachment, and acceptance, you disarm it. You reclaim your power. The moment you truly see the ego for what it is, its control starts to crumble. You no longer feel compelled to hold on to pain. You stop needing validation from outside. You stop identifying as a victim of circumstance. And in that clarity, you realize something powerful. The suffering never truly came from what happened to you. The pain was real, yes, but the story the ego built around it is what trapped you. Now comes one of the most transformative truths about healing emotionally. Pain doesn't vanish by fighting it. It starts to dissolve when you embrace it differently. This is the lesson no one teaches us. From childhood, we are told to avoid pain. Don't cry, be strong, hide weakness. So we repress it, deny it, run from it. But the truth is this: what you resist persists. The more you suppress pain, the more power it gains. Repressed pain doesn't disappear. It buries itself deep in your mind, in your body, in your behavior. It becomes chronic anxiety. it becomes inexplicable anger. It becomes numbness. And the more you refuse to feel it, the deeper it roots in your subconscious. Carl Jung knew this well. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You cannot heal by ignoring your pain. You must face it fully, honestly, without resistance. Think of pain like a force. When you push, it pushes back. That's why avoiding emotions like sadness, grief, or rage makes them stronger. You tell yourself not to cry, not to feel, not to break down. You distract yourself with work, social media, or anything else that keeps you from facing yourself. But once you are finally alone, when the noise stops, the pain returns, stronger than before. You blame others. You blame life. You insist it's their fault. But as long as you project outward, you never look within. And that is where true healing begins. It's not the pain that destroys you, it's the resistance to it that makes it unbearable. So what's the key to breaking the cycle? Accept the pain. Stop running. Allow yourself to feel, fully, consciously, without judgment. If you're sad, allow yourself to cry. If you're angry, sit with it. Don't act impulsively, but don't deny it either. Simply observe the emotion. Witness it. Feel it move through your body, and something extraordinary will begin to happen. When you stop resisting pain and start welcoming it as a natural part of being human, it begins to lose its grip. The monster in your mind starts to shrink. And here's the most beautiful truth. Nothing lasts forever. Every emotion, no matter how intense, is temporary. Every wave of suffering will pass if you let it. But when you resist, when you carry the story with you, you stretch the suffering far beyond what's necessary. Healing doesn't occur in the future. It happens in the now. In the moment you stop running from yourself and begin embracing everything you are, wounds and all, that's when transformation begins. Carl Jung spoke profoundly about inner change, and one of its central truths is impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, neither joy nor pain. Everything flows, everything moves. Just like pleasure, pain is temporary. It doesn't define you, and it's not eternal. Think back to the last time you endured a difficult moment. At the time, it may have felt like a storm that would never end. You may have felt hopeless, exhausted, trapped, certain you'd never escape. Yet somehow, you did. You are here now, wiser, more experienced, with new perspectives. You made it through. And the same will happen with whatever pain you face now. This too shall pass. The storm will calm, and the sun will rise again. So how do we radically accept pain instead of being consumed by it? How do we stop being prisoners of our own suffering? There are steps you can begin practicing immediately. Powerful tools to reclaim emotional freedom and step into inner strength. First, stop judging your pain. Don't label it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't ask, "Why am I feeling this?" or "When will it end?" Instead, simply allow yourself to feel, without resistance, shame, or stories. It isn't good or bad. It's simply an experience moving through you, that's all. Second, observe it in your body. When you feel anxiety, anger, grief, or sorrow, don't let your mind spin elaborate stories about how unfair life is or how broken you are. Instead, focus on your body. Ask, where do I feel this emotion? How does it physically appear? Perhaps a tight chest, a lump in the throat, trembling hands, or a knot in the stomach. Just notice it. Observe it without trying to fix or fight it. Third, breathe through it. Instead of clenching your jaw, tightening fists, or distracting yourself, try this. Take a deep breath, then another. Let the breath move through the emotion. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to make the pain vanish. Your only task is to be fully present with what is. And something remarkable happens when you do this. When you stop resisting pain and start welcoming it with awareness, you realize it has no true power over you. The pain may still exist, but its grip begins to fade. You're no longer a victim. You become someone who moves through pain with strength, with maturity, with grace. This is your true power, not through control, not through resistance, but through acceptance. Most people spend their lives running from pain, distracting themselves, avoiding discomfort. escaping through work, addictions, or denial. But the only way to free yourself from suffering is to face it directly, consciously, with an open heart. And when you do, when you stop fighting and allow yourself to fully feel, something miraculous occurs. You discover that pain was never your enemy. Suffering didn't come to destroy you. It came to awaken you, to shape you, to transform you. And once you grasp this, fear begins to dissolve. So now, let's go even deeper. Because once you stop resisting pain, you can actually use it. Not only to heal, but to evolve in ways you never imagined. This is where true transformation begins. You can turn your pain into power. This is the alchemical process of healing. By now, you understand that resisting pain only makes it stronger, that avoiding it deepens the wounds, and that accepting it is the first step toward freedom. But there is something even more extraordinary you can do. You can transform your suffering into your greatest source of strength. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He spoke of the ancient art of alchemy not as the literal turning of lead into gold, but as a psychological and spiritual journey. True alchemy happens within us. The lead is our pain, our deepest wounds, our fears, our traumas. The gold is what we become when we embrace that pain and allow it to refine us. Wisdom, strength, maturity, compassion. These are the gifts on the other side of suffering. So the real question isn't, how can I avoid suffering? The real question is, how can I use my suffering to become stronger, wiser, freer? This is the hidden power of pain. It is a call to awaken. Think about the strongest people you've ever known, the ones with depth, insight, quiet courage radiating from their presence. They didn't become who they are through easy lives. They didn't grow by avoiding hardship. No, they walked through fire. They were broken open, and on the other side, they were reborn. Every experience of pain is a crossroads, a sacred invitation. You can let it close you down, or you can let it open you up. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. It's the choice to stop being who you were and to become someone entirely new, more awake, more resilient, more deeply connected to life. Carl Jung spoke of the dark night of the soul, a phase when an individual comes face to face with their deepest suffering, a period of intense emotional and spiritual turmoil, where it feels as though the foundation of your world is collapsing. You feel you've reached your limit, that the weight of life is unbearable. The pain becomes overwhelming, suffocating even. But Jung didn't describe this as punishment. He saw it as a sacred opportunity, an invitation to transformation, a test not of strength, but of willingness to evolve. Because precisely when everything seems lost, when you think you cannot go on, you stand on the edge of your greatest breakthrough. Now imagine that instead of resisting this darkness, you pause and ask, what is this trying to teach me? How can I use this pain not to collapse, but to rise? In that moment, something extraordinary happens. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the alchemist of your own life. You begin to transform destruction into rebirth. From the ashes, a new version of you is forged, stronger, wiser, more aligned with your true self. Each time you've experienced loss, betrayal, heartbreak, or deep disappointment, something within you has died. But what most people don't realize is that this death is necessary. It's the death of illusions, the end of false expectations, the dismantling of identities that no longer serve growth. And what follows each death is a chance for rebirth, a sacred opportunity to rebuild yourself from a deeper place of truth. Reflect on your life and you'll notice that the experiences that shaped you most were not the happiest ones. It was the struggles, the hardships, the times you were pushed to your edge and somehow found the strength to move forward. That is the essence of transformation. Pain in its purest form breaks you apart. It shatters the beliefs you held about yourself, the world, and others. It forces you to confront your shadows, your wounds, the parts of yourself you've long ignored. And within that confrontation lies a gift, the chance to choose, either remain stuck or evolve. Let pain define you, or let it refine you. So, how do you turn your suffering into power? How do you alchemize pain into purpose? Here's a practical framework to begin this transformation. First, shift your mindset. Pain is not punishment, It's initiation. Life doesn't give you suffering to break you. It gives you challenges to awaken you. Those who see pain as unfair often remain trapped in bitterness, but those who embrace it as part of the journey emerge stronger than ever. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow, to learn, to evolve. So stop asking, why me? Start asking, what is this here to teach me? Second, transform your story into your power. Look at those who endured immense suffering, yet turned it into a force for good. People who were rejected and learned to validate themselves. People who were betrayed and discovered the strength of trusting their intuition. People who hit rock bottom and uncovered a power they never knew existed. Your story is uniquely yours, but how you use it is entirely up to you. Third, let pain fuel your purpose. Pain can either destroy you or drive you. It's your choice. If someone hurt you, don't dwell in resentment. Use it as fuel to rise. If life feels unfair, show the world how you can overcome. If you've experienced loss, fill the emptiness with meaning. The most successful people in the world didn't get there by avoiding pain. They got there because they used it as a launch pad to greatness. Finally, turn pain into wisdom. When you've walked through suffering and truly learned from it, something remarkable happens. You become unshakable. You stop reacting to others' negativity because you understand their projections aren't yours to carry. You no longer fear pain. You faced it and survived. In fact, you emerge stronger, wiser, more grounded in your truth. You become a person with undeniable presence, someone who radiates quiet strength because you've traversed darkness and discovered your own light. This is what Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming who you truly are, without masks, fear, or external validation. And when you reach this point, the emotional cycle of pain begins to dissolve. You no longer define yourself by what hurt you. You don't avoid pain, you welcome it as a teacher, a guide, a signal that you are ready for your next evolution. And then it hits you. Pain didn't make you weaker, it made you invincible. The choice is in your hands. You know the truth. Pain isn't something to run from, it's the spark that can ignite your most profound transformation. You have two options: remain stuck in suffering, resisting, feeling like a victim of life's cruelty, or use that same suffering as a springboard to become stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. Only one path will set you free. So, which path will you choose? If you choose to break the cycle and turn every hardship into a stepping stone for growth, write it in the comments. I transform my pain into power. Because once you make that decision, once you truly commit to owning your journey, nothing and no one can stop you. In the end, it all comes down to this. Will you let pain control you, poison your thoughts, drain your spirit? Or will you do what few dare to do, use it as a catalyst for transformation? Jung said it best. You cannot awaken unless you first hit rock bottom. Now that you understand the truth behind suffering, the power to change your life is in your hands. Pain only has power over you if you keep resisting it. But once you stop running and begin embracing it as your greatest teacher, everything shifts. You become the master of your destiny, not its victim. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to change your life, ready to stop being defined by suffering, ready to start writing a new story, and this is just the beginning. Watch the next video. It will leave you speechless and help you dive even deeper into your path of transformation. Click now, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss content that could truly change your life. I'll see you in the next